This is Jed Disler, and welcome to the Piano Maven, your friendly podcast guide to piano recordings. I hope you will consider taking out a paid subscription to the Piano Maven podcast through my Substack page, and I've provided a link to do so in my episode description. And paid subscribers get a free download at the beginning of each month, which is usually a rare piano recording from my collection. Anyway, I hope you will consider subscribing because a subscription that you pay for helps keep this podcast going. So, the $64,000 question this week is, who is Claudio Colombo? If you are a piano maven who likes to browse on streaming services, as I do, it is possible that you may have encountered the name Claudio Colombo. This person appears to have recorded not only the entire standard piano repertoire and a lot of harpsichord repertoire, but also a lot of off-the-beaten-track repertoire. And if you look online, this person, or this persona, is apparently based in Milan, Italy. And Milan is kind of my second home. So maybe I'm going to encounter Claudio Colombo at my local pizzeria or shopping in the supermarket. Anyway, I'm browsing now on my Spotify account, and I'm going to type in the name Claudio Colombo and popular releases by Claudio Colombo. And I am seeing tons of releases. I'm seeing albums of music by Louis Couperin, by Gottschalk, by Bartók, and Mozart and Pachelbel, Czerny, etudes by Stephen Heller, music of Ernesto Nazaret. I see an album that has 25 etudes caractéristiques by a composer named Jean-Baptiste Duvernoy. I never heard of that composer before. I see the complete keyboard works of William Byrd. There are many, many volumes of Johann Strauss waltzes for piano. The 50 etudes by Henri Bertini. And, oh my goodness, there are all 4 Brahms symphonies arranged for piano solo. And there are lots of chamber works in piano for hand arrangements, which I guess Claudio Colombo is multi-tracking himself. The list goes on and on and on and on. I mean, this discography makes Joyce Hatto look like nothing by comparison. I suspect what this is, though, is that this Claudio Colombo character is processing MIDI files, which are played back through an electronic keyboard or something equivalent to that. And the big giveaway, and what makes me really suspect this, is that you also see albums that contain art songs arranged for either clarinet or piano, or flute and piano. Okay? And then when you actually listen to these examples, the clarinet sounds like a really bad MIDI version of a clarinet, and the flute sounds anything but like a real flute. Furthermore, you get almost no rubato. You get a limited range of dynamics. And I have to say, it wasn't really unpleasant listening to parts of the 4 Brahms symphonies played by, or let's say uploaded by, Claudio Colombo. But there are some real duds among these releases. I mean, he could have picked better tempos for the piano 4 hands version of Beethoven's String Quartet No. 1, Opus 18 No. 1. And I found 14 volumes of American piano rags played by, or I should say allegedly played by, Claudio Colombo. And you've never heard such rhythmically stiff reproductions all on the same dynamic level. Ouch. And the MIDI harpsichord version of the Bach-Goldberg variations sounds a little bit like there might be a human being involved because the tempos change from variation to variation, and I would imagine that one has to be a human being to figure out the tempo changes between variations. But the rather metronomic-sounding Frescobaldi pieces played back on a piano patch are kind of a giveaway. It's quite an achievement that this Claudio Colombo character has had the time and the energy to create hundreds of releases like this. I'm looking now at the complete Scarlatti sonatas. There's one version on piano, and then there's one version on harpsichord, for the love of Pete. And I'm still browsing as I'm speaking, and oh my goodness, now I'm seeing English folk songs for piano and Danish folk songs for piano. And again, these are heavy and metronomic and robotic performances. Do you really need to hear this? I think the idea of Claudio Colombo and the complete published keyboard repertoire in MIDI files is rather amazing, I have to admit. And as I keep browsing down the list of available titles, some of which I've dipped into, I keep wondering what repertoire is going to pop up next. I wonder if there's going to be, or maybe there already exists, a Claudio Colombo edition of Wagner's complete ring cycle arranged for one piano, four hands. I actually have the ring cycle arranged for four hands. I got that from IMSLP, and I even printed it out. And I've had this obsession about maybe one day performing the entire opera Götterdämmerung in the four-hand transcription without singers, of course. But I have to find another pianist crazy enough to collaborate with me. But maybe it's better to wait for the Claudio Colombo interpretation first. I'm thinking, what would really be cool? A MIDI version of the complete piano score of that opera by Gabriel von Weidich called The Heretics. This was the last of this composer's many, many operas, most of which never saw the light of day. This opera supposedly lasts 8 hours, and Gabriel von Weidich finished the opera's 1,531-page piano reduction, but he never got around to completing the orchestral score. He left behind some 2,850 pages in orchestral score before he died. So, what about a Claudio Colombo MIDI file of The Heretics? I know where the score is, and I have this crazy idea that I'm going to sight read through it one day. Anyway, I'm just ranting about Gabriel von Weidich for no apparent reason other than he wrote an 8-hour opera that I really would love to see the score to. But I'm digressing. Do go on Spotify or Amazon Music or wherever you can find the seemingly endless discography of Claudio Colombo. It's a rather extraordinary achievement in its way. So let's just leave it at that. This is Jed Disler, and you've been listening to The Piano Maven, your friendly podcast guide to piano recordings. I look forward to being with you next time.